Hey gang, it's Billy. Before we kick off this episode with myself, Shane Echeverria, and New England Pre-Modern Summer Regional Champion Andy Voellmer of the fearsome Order of the Sacred Torch, I'm going to give you a little status update about the status of DuressFest. It's going great. This little status update is in 3 parts. Part 1, a very sincere thank you. Everybody who's pledged for a ticket, thank you. I hope to see you there. This is going to be sick. This is very humbling to see that you would want to go to our event. That's like you and me, listener, like the whole gang, everybody, the whole community. The fact that you want to show up and like play Magic with us and like enjoy this great time with this event that we've all built together. That's flattering. That's humbling. Thank you for buying a ticket. For those of you who can't go, can't afford to go, whatever, who have bought a stamped card, thank you. Like, thank you for taking a token of our appreciation in exchange for your good faith and good support. And for those of you who, like, what you have the means to offer is just amplification, like spreading the word on social media, spreading good news to your friends, asking your friends if you're going. Thank you so much. Like, that's so critical. That's like, it's so important. And I feel comfortable speaking for Duress Crew. It's just like, it's so humbling to have this amount of support and to have like all these like great, smart, competent, mature people offering to help. And like this, it is a big event and it is a big task. And I am like personally kind of like, well, shit, this is going to be like fucking huge. But that also means it's going to be fucking sick. What I don't feel is like fear. Like the amount of people who have reached out and said, hey, like one of my dogs has a t-shirt printing press, like hit him up, tell him I sent you, like we'll figure this out and get some like t-shirts printed up and I'll make sure you get like a reasonable rate and get them on time. Like, hey, I own a store, like let me know if you need help sourcing pricing, I'll cut you guys a good rate. Like all these things, just like layers and layers. Like, hey, do you need anybody to like hoof tables around? Hey, do you need anybody for commentary? Like all the amount of, it's like this like cacophonous support. And it's all like, it's just really nice. And I'm like, not, I don't know. I can go on and on about this, but the moral of the story is thank you. And I'm just so impressed by the amount of support that we've gotten. And, this thing's going to fucking rip. So part 2 is a status update. It's Wednesday at about 9 p.m., August 5th. We got $82,000 raised. Hell yeah. 510 backers. Hell yeah. And we got 12 days to go. Hell yeah. This seems about on pace to finish, and it seems pretty reasonable to think that we might go a bit over. But that doesn't mean that I have to stop pushing it, or that I can stop pushing it. And this thing straight up, like, if it doesn't fund, it doesn't happen. Such is the nature of Kickstarters. We can't run a condensed event on $82,000. It has to go above $100,000, or else it just straight up doesn't happen. So if you're signed up, or if you think what we're up to is cool, please share the word, DuressFest.com. If you can go, it's going to be sick. If you can't go, but you want to support, you can buy $25, get you a stamped card. Yeah. So part 3 of this preface is the contingency plan. So in the hypothetical event, so this is all in Kickstarter Organizer Update number 2. In the event that this does not fund, which I don't anticipate because y'all are dope and we're all going to rally together and get this thing over the finish line. In the event that this doesn't fund, DuressFest does not happen, and Duress Crew will be deferring to like a lot to LobsterCon 27. The thing is that backers of DuressFest are going to get first dibs. It's going to be, low 300s in seats, and there's 510 backers. So if you want like a really good shot at getting in, back the Kickstarter. Cool. Let's see here. What else is in this organizer update? We are not presently going to add any more Kickstarter rewards, but we might in the event that we need to nudge, from 96 to like over 100 or something like that. Don't quote me. Generally, we want this event not to be about like somebody with deep pockets just like getting us over the edge. We want this event to be like player funded, player organized, all this stuff. So it's really about getting players to show up, and players are going, like, ideally we want people who are like buying tickets and playing and like shooting the shit, drinking a beer, having a good old time, because that's the goal. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So don't expect any more rewards unless we need to get over the finish line. So that's it. We're going to go into Andy Voellmer's interview. It's going to be Andy, me, Shane, and enjoy the episode. Thanks. Just when you could relax, just when you thought it was all over with, I'm Billy Mills Curran. I'm here with Shane Echevarria, and we are honored to have our guest Andy Voellmer here on Hardcast. And this is going to be the winner's interview for the Duress Crew Summer Regional. Mr. Voellmer won, playing his fearsome Landstill deck. And Shane, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Shane of the Duress Crew. I don't know what I should be saying in this spot. I was the raffle organizer for this event, in addition to assisting with the stream and filling in as TO when Billy needed to step away.
And Andy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Andy. I've been a big Magic player for many years, and it was a great honor to win the tournament, and happy to be here sharing all my secrets about Landstill.
Andy, when you were running hot, Jay recommended to me that I should put you on for a feature match, and I was like, I've heard of this guy, but I don't know anything about him. And he told me that was cringe, that I didn't know anything about you. So, and he said that you were a very powerful wizard. What do you say to these allegations?
Well, I do my best.
You do your best.
Should I do a little run through of my wizarding history? Is that
Yeah. So, one of the questions that I sort of kick things off with, which is, what is the first Magic product you remember opening up? And then, like, how did you react to that?
Yeah, great question. My first Magic cards were from my dad. He bought us each a 5th edition starter deck, and we just opened them up. They had like 5 of each basic land, and then a sort of random assortment of commons, uncommons, and 3 rares. And we just shuffled it up and started playing. The games did not go very well. It's like 5 colors, just random commons from across all the colors. But we did manage to play a game or two, and then eventually kind of realized, hey, I guess you can choose which cards go in your deck, and you can play like 2 or 3 colors instead of all 5. So our decks got a little bit better after that. And then I found some friends at school that were playing as well. I remember one of my friends at school was telling me about this super special kind of rare card called Delta cards. I guess he'd heard of like Alpha and Beta and extrapolated to assume that there must be something called Delta as well. And the way you can tell that a card is a Delta card, according to my friend, was that it's got a little snowflake symbol right under the picture. So this was when Ice Age was in stores. I went to the store, I got a pack of Ice Age, and I opened it up, and holy shit, I got 15 Delta cards in one pack.
How lucky.
It was nuts.
That's very like my uncle works for Coke, or no, my uncle works for Pokemon, like coded, like schoolyard rumors. This is great. So this is
Totally.
probably 1998.
Well, I guess Ice Age was in stores in like 95, 96.
95.
So probably
Okay.
around then. So yeah, I played like, pretty casually with friends at school for a couple of years. I think the first tournament I ever went to was like, so my friends and I at school started like getting a little more serious, looking up net decks, as we called it at the time.
The Scoundrels.
Yeah, and this was like right around when Urza Masks block was coming out, that I put together a net deck of Deranged Hermit Opposition. Squirrel Prison was what we called it.
So that's when you sold out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fell out since 99. Heard it here first.
That's right. So I went to a local tournament. I think I won a match or two, but then I came up against some guy that was doing like goblin welder shenanigans. I think there were like tangle wires involved, maybe. I did not understand what was going on. I just like got hosed by this goblin welder and like didn't know what hit me. So yeah, that was my first tournament experience, but played sort of casually down at the LGS from time to time around that era. And one of my biggest accomplishments from that period was like a few years later in Mirrodin era. I guess that would be like 2003, 2004. I was playing a lot of goblins. This was when Patriarch's Bidding was in the format too, so I had a goblin bidding deck. And I won the Maryland State Championships. That was my big claim to fame at the time, Maryland State Champion.
When I was researching your role, I saw that you were mentioned as a young man. There's an article from about 2004, and somebody called you the best constructed player that they knew of. Are you aware of this article?
I'm not aware of this article.
I'm certain.
I'm flattered.
I'm certain you were aware of it because they like interviewed you. It was
Oh, was it from my high school newspaper called Silver Chips?
I think maybe.
Oh
I just like typed your name in, and I mean, you just like start and you Google, like that's step one. I'm like, oh, okay, like I buy this. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy that still exists.
Yeah.
Were you the youngest state champion?
I don't know. I was probably on the younger side, but I was like in high school, maybe 15 or something.
Sure. So yeah, from what I remember, like someone won it at like 14 or 15, and that was the record. So that might be you.
I was probably in the running for youngest. Yeah, it was definitely a huge high point of my life at that point.
Was there like a experience where you switched from like, I guess, like little kid Magic to competitive Magic? Like for me, there's like a very clear point where I like stopped playing Magic because high school, like social esteem, girls wanted to be cool. And then like I came back when I realized like I was just happier being myself and doing the things I liked. And then I was like, my brain was much more mature. Was there like a line, or was it like a gradual transition where you're just owning it from the beginning?
I never shied away too much from like publicizing that I liked playing Magic. I've kind of come in and out of the game over the years, but I didn't really have a moment of like, I gotta quit this game because it's for losers and nerds. I was always like, trying to make it just a little bit cooler if I could.
Got it.
So yeah, I played, more or less proudly throughout high school. And then in college, I went up to Montreal for college, and there was a pretty good scene there of people playing. It felt like a really cool way to get in touch with the French part of Montreal as well. Because so I was at McGill, which is an English-speaking college, and you're kind of in the McGill bubble as an American living in Montreal, going to McGill. Most of your friends are probably Americans. It's hard to meet connections with the locals because they all speak French to each other, and it's hard to improve your French because as soon as they realize you're an American, they'll just switch right over to English because they all speak English too,
I've heard this rumor about living in Quebec that people just look at you and they know immediately, like, no, it was just like body language, or maybe it's like pheromones or something. whether to open with bonjour or hello, and they're right every time. That it's like this unique ability that natural born Quebecois have.
I would
Is this
disagree.
Oh,
As someone, so I was actually going to ask about this. As someone, I went to Grand Prix Montreal, which was roughly 06 or 07, something around there. And everyone would talk to me in French. I would not understand what they were saying. They'd give me a very disappointed look and then continue in English.
you do have a
You got the
certain
French
European,
pheromones, yeah.
yeah, you have a European affect, Shane. It's a compliment.
This is European.
Worldly, metropolitan. Very good. Moving on.
That was one of the things I liked about playing Magic in Montreal, was because when you're going out into the LGSs in the broader city, I was very much interacting with the locals, making friends who were born and bred Montrealers, getting invited to the after parties in ways that I wouldn't have if I hadn't been playing Magic with those guys. So yeah, it was cool playing them. I wasn't playing like super competitively at that point, but I would, show up pretty regularly, go to the occasional PTQ.
Sure. And I saw that so you're doing this, and then did you participate? You competed in Grand Prix Guadalajara, is that right? Am I crazy?
Guadalajara? No.
No, you qualified for the Pro Tour via Grand Prix, right?
Yes, Sacramento. That was
Sacramento.
later.
Yes.
That was in grad school. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes, let's see. Right before I left Canada, I played in Canadian Nationals, and I had to ask the judge, "Am I allowed to play in Canadian Nationals? Because I'm not Canadian." But did not do very well. But yes, then after that, I went to Berkeley, California for grad school. I was out there for 7 years doing a PhD, and played a lot of Magic down at the local shop, Eudaimonia. There were a lot of aspiring pro players in that crew. Nathan Stoyer, the world champion and latest Pro Tour champion, was actually like a little kid playing there at the shop. I like to think I taught him a thing or two about the magical arts. And Ben Whites, who now works for WotC, Eric Severson, who's a pro player for a while, Neil Oliver. A lot of those guys were playing all at that LGS in Berkeley. So I was kind of part of that scene. And around that time, I top-aided Grand Prix Sacramento, which qualified me for the one and only Pro Tour that I ever went to. Yeah.
I was researching more about your personal history, and I was reading about some of your academic achievements, and they're very impressive.
Thank you.
I flicked through your PhD thesis. It was it used the word premise, but with a C. Is that a Canadian spelling, or is that pre-mice?
Like it is pre-mice. Yeah.
Okay.
So my PhD was in set theory, which is a lot of stuff about different sizes of infinity. And the 2-sentence description is there's a hierarchy of different sizes of infinity. Some infinities are bigger than others. Some people have maybe heard of like countable versus uncountable infinity. Those are some of the distinctions, and there's a whole hierarchy of different bigger and bigger uncountable infinities. And some of the really, really big ones we don't have a very good understanding of. Like, we understand the mathematical structure of the small infinities pretty well, but as they get bigger and bigger, they become really unruly. We don't know how to give sort of clear organizing principles to show how they work. And mice are the name of this one mathematical structure that you can use to sort of break apart a really big infinity into little shards called mice that help you understand little bits better. And pre-mice are like things that might end up becoming mice. You're not sure yet. So that's what my thesis was about.
What is your Erdish number?
Infinity, because I haven't actually published in a journal. I just wrote the thesis.
Very good.
I don't,
Very good.
If the thesis counts with my advisor as a co-publication, then maybe 3, probably.
Probably 3?
Probably.
That's pretty low. I studied math. I did not go to grad school for it, because I will never go to grad school. but I was like, oh, this guy's like a math guy. And then I started flicking through stuff, and I was like, yeah, we're not talking about math on this episode.
Yeah, sometimes I flick through my thesis and I don't even remember what half that stuff means at this
Yeah.
point.
That's kind of how I feel now, where it's like I have some very hard won notes, and I'm like, man, once upon a time I understood this. Cool. Okay. So then you go to Berkeley and you do some very smart things with some very smart people. And then you also did like a game about using, it's like it had like little graphs, and there were dice and colored stones. What's up with
That's
that?
right. Yeah. I invented a board game called Sigil that I started brainstorming it actually like almost 20 years ago now. It was like when I was an undergrad. I had this idea for a board game where both players are kind of building out a skill tree was sort of the idea. Like I was watching my friend play Final Fantasy X, and I thought that the
Sure.
skill
Yep.
tree that you use to like level up your characters in Final Fantasy X looked really freaking cool. But I didn't really care about the rest of Final Fantasy X. I didn't really care about like running around in the world and casting the fire and ice spells to blow up monsters. I just wanted to play with that skill tree. So I was like, what if I can make like a board game that's just a big skill tree, and you could have like two players taking turns unlocking new skills that they can use, and then there's some kind of way to like have a battle against each other all within the skill tree. And that was the original idea. It had to go through a lot of iterations. I had to tweak the rules a million times. But yeah, for like 15 years or so, I would like pull these like prototype boards out of my closet and play around with them. A friend of mine would come over, we'd play test a bunch of games. My friend would break the game, and I'd realize I had to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new set of rules. And I went through that process like every 6 months or a year or so for like 15 years or whatnot, until I finally landed on like just the perfect mix of mechanics to like get the chemistry just right so that the game felt really good, played really smoothly. Yeah, I went out and eventually got it published by Pine Island Games. I don't think it's up for sale anymore on the website, but we built a like digital version of the game that's like free to play online at sigilbattle.com, sigilbattle.com. So yeah, it's still there. We got a decent community of people playing it, and I definitely I think it's a good game. Yeah.
What a fun legacy to enjoy. This is great. I built a small game. It's like dice rolling and dice matching. And it just getting somebody to play test with you. It's just, they're so precious. So God bless your friend.
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
got a fair number of the like aspiring Magic pros at the LGS at Berkeley into it. So Nathan Stoyer has played a fair bit of Sigil, in fact, as well as some of these other pro players at Berkeley.
Maybe I'll give it a spin and learn the rules and challenge you, and then I can brag that I beat the designer.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Cool. So you're in grad school, you're playing Magic, doing some smart stuff, and that's when you qualified was for the Pro Tour, and it
That's
was
right.
and it was a limited Grand Prix Theros.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you really did your homework. Wow, it was it was triple Theros draft on day one, and no, sorry, Theros sealed, and then triple Theros draft on day two. Yeah,
Cool.
And I squeaked into day two at 7-2, which was like the worst record you could have to still make the day two cutoff. And then I 3-0'd 2 drafts in a row and made the top 8. And then got raffle stomped in my top 8 match. But hey, I had the qualification, so that was pretty sick.
And then which Pro Tour did you go to, and what was the format?
It was Pro Tour Journey into Nyx in Atlanta.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I sort of had dreams of traveling to cool exotic locations on the Pro Tour. Atlanta was not as exotic as some places the Pro Tour has visited, but still a super fun experience. Yeah, cheap to get to. Yeah, but I didn't really have like a testing team. I didn't really know many other people that were qualified, so it was just me and my one buddy Paul Yeem, who from the Berkeley area, who had also qualified. And the format, unfortunately, was Theros block constructed. This was the last ever block constructed Pro Tour before they retired the format forever. And like block constructed kind of sucks. Nobody's that excited about it. Nobody plays it except for Pro Tour testing. So there was no established metagame. I couldn't do any net decking. I just had to like make up 75 cards and bring it to the Pro Tour with almost zero like real testing against other players, committed to the format. So Paul Yeem and I got together for dinner a couple times and just like threw together random lists of cards and threw them at each other, and ended up deciding we would just play mono red because we didn't know what the heck was going on. Figured it was probably a reasonably safe choice. It was not a reasonably safe choice. It turned out it was basically a one deck metagame, which was like grindy green mid-range decks with lots of life gain, Corsair crew fixes and various planeswalkers and Sylvan Caryatids. That was like the one deck metagame, and we just got destroyed with our little mono red pile. Yeah.
So that was your only Pro Tour?
That was my only Pro Tour, yeah. I got kicked out of the room so hard they told me to never come back.
Yeah. Don't you ever try and pull this shit again. Get out. Yeah. Cool. So you do a Pro Tour, and then what was your relationship to Magic between then? So maybe like I guess that would be 2015, and then up to when did you start playing Pre-Modern?
Like 2022, I think I first learned about the format. Yeah.
So what happened in those 7 years?
Yeah, so I graduated from grad school, and at first had been thinking maybe I would stay in the Bay Area. That's where a lot of my friends were, but a lot of them were moving away after school, and I decided I would try and get into the tech industry. Silicon Valley seemed like a natural place to go and stay. A lot of my friends were tech guys there, kind of showed me the ropes of how to code, how computers work. But then I kind of realized like, hey, I could move to New York, couldn't I? And I'd like always grown up visiting New York here and there and thought it was just like the coolest place in the world. So I started just exclusively applying for jobs in New York, and got some offers, and came over in like early 2018 and just had like stars in my eyes. Like, wow, I'm actually living in New York City. This is so cool.
I very briefly lived in New York City, and it's like so, there's just so much to do all the time. It's always, if it's not the best at like whatever scene it is, it's like the second or third best. Like you can go to a rodeo. Like there's a rodeo scene in like the New York metropolitan area, in addition to like the normal stuff of like music and like business and any hobby you could ever want, dancing, and there's everything. Bicycle polo. Who cares?
Yeah. So, it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place.
And you got linked up into Pre-Modern through being in New York City?
Yeah, I think I like saw an ad for it on Facebook and saw some of the deck lists, thought it looked cool. I think when I first moved here, I wasn't playing a lot of Magic. I met a girl, and not long after we got married, and had a kid a little while after that. So important life things happening. But yeah, I linked up with a group of kind of casual Magic players that would meet up every couple weeks for drafts, and we played a lot of Legacy, like with proxy decks, but I wasn't going to any serious tournaments or anything. And then, in 2022, I think I saw some ads for Pre-Modern, and saw the Landstill deck in particular, and thought it looked super cool, super fun. Reminded me of a standard deck I had played back in the day that had a lot of those same cards. I think I threw together the Landstill deck and went to my first Pre-Modern tournament, I believe was at Game Storia in Queens. And one of my matches was actually against Lanny Huang, the podcast host and New York Pre-Modern team captain. And of course I was on Landstill, he was on Growatog. Some things never change. And he beat me on camera in that match. I think that's the only time we've ever played, actually. I wonder if Lanny remembers that match.
I'm certain he does. One of the things that I noticed when I like was suddenly confronted with, I'm like, oh, this guy's winning, I probably have to interview them. Like, let's see what this guy's all about. I'd heard your name before in passing, but your gang is really, really proud that you're on their team. They're really stoked to have you. Everybody speaks very highly of you. They all think you're courteous and skilled, and everybody's just everybody in New York, at least, is just so glad to have you around. So yeah, I intend to ask Shane if he will be so kind to do a deck tech with you, but I want to ask you. We've kept this fairly light, but I want to ask sort of a more discriminating and more discriminating question, which I think that actually you particularly would be well equipped to answer. What is it about pre-modern? Maybe it's social, maybe it's game design elements, maybe it's something interesting going on in the metagame. Maybe it's the non-rotating thing, so which adds some quality. So, and I guess I'm asking you as like a set theorist, or as a game designer, or as a software engineer, or what have you. What is it about pre-modern that cuts the mustard for you?
Yeah, good question. I've definitely given this some thought. It's a few things. I think the community is amazing. I love the people that I've met through pre-modern. I think it really strikes a good balance for me of like people who are serious about Magic, who are skilled and have a history with the game, and take it seriously and are trying their hardest to win, but also who have other things in their lives too, and are a little less like the comic book guy from The Simpsons than you get in some Magic communities. And then the non-rotating aspect of it is pretty cool. I like that you can really go deep in the format, really understand all the array of different sideboard options that exist, and that it's not just getting thrown into chaos every few months with the rotation. But the biggest thing I would say is that I've kind of lost faith in the direction WotC is taking with contemporary Magic. Not just on an aesthetic dimension with Universes Beyond, but like I feel like over the past 10 or 15 years, they've really handed the reins over to Hasbro to a great extent with, saying, hey, the highest priority is to juice sales for the new sets. The way we're going to do that is by deciding at the outset which cards are going to be standard and modern all-stars, and we're just going to push the heck out of those cards because it is a business requirement coming from the top that the new Gideon card is prominently featured in the next Pro Tour, because that's our plan to sell the set. And so they push the Gideon card to the point that it's obviously way more powerful than everything else, and it just leads to bad gameplay. It just leads to a not very interesting format. Back when Odyssey was coming out, one of the strongest cards ended up being Wild Mongrel, Psychotog, these random little animals that were commons that the designers didn't know exactly what was going to be good. They were throwing interesting ideas at the wall, and the players were figuring out how to combine them into winning strategies. And right now they're trying to over-engineer that experience in contemporary Magic, where they know what has to be good because it has to be Spider-Man, and it will not be some random common robot that Spider-Man fights in some obscure episode. It has to be the headliner card Spider-Man, and so he has to be twice as powerful as everything else. And I think that's just poor game design.
That's a really astute discrimination that you're making. I never really thought about it in those terms. And to me, it feels a bit disingenuous, because the sort of the a priori promise to the players is that you get to build your own deck. But it's like, well, we are going to make it correct to build our deck. And the cases where that's not the case, you can end up with like a somewhat perverted playstyle with things like I don't know, lantern control or what have you, where it's just like these weird play experiences that it's like somebody found something that's or dredge, where it's like mechanically valid, but like nobody ever wanted that to happen, so they didn't design for that to be a fun play experience.
Exactly. They used to give us a sandbox with a bunch of cool toys in it, and they didn't have an exact idea of what the correct way to play with all those toys was. And now they're strapping us into a roller coaster with contemporary
I
Magic.
disagree a bit. Like, Madness was clearly a deck that was printed for us to play Madness. But I do agree that the new threats in Magic are more powerful overall, and they lead to more non-games. Versus a turn 2 Wild Mongrel. If you miss your third land drop, you still get to play Magic. I don't think that's true against contemporary threats. But, like, they've kind of been designing decks for us for the last 20 years at least.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, there were definitely archetypes. I would argue that even with something like the Blue-Green Madness deck, it was less on rails than what you see in some contemporary formats. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's a nuanced discussion. You might be right about that particular example.
Cool. Well, that was a really thoughtful answer. So let's pass it over to Shane, if you would. I would like to invite you to do the deck tech with Mr. Voellmer here.
Absolutely. Not going to go over the list card by card. Most people are very familiar with, Landstill or an Azurius control deck. So I'm just going to ask a couple specific questions about card choices.
A what control deck, Shane?
Blue-white control.
I'm looking at Melee right now, and it lists the deck as Azorius. These are not my words. I'm simply repeating what is in front of us. Also, based on our conversation, both Andy and I played during the period in which it would have been named Azorius. So we're not off topic.
That's true.
Pardon my interruption. Please continue.
No worries. All right. So again, very standard Landstill Azurius control deck. I'm just interested in a couple of the card choices. Disenchant over Seal of Cleansing. Is there any particular reason you wanted the instant speed versus the card that you could put under a standstill and let it sit there?
Yeah. I like to play at instant speed. I like my opponents to not know what's coming. I think the less information you give them, the better. I think I'm maybe even more aggressive about counterspelling those duresses or cabal therapies than some people might be, because I do think you get a significant edge from that, from them not knowing what you're about to pull on them. So Disenchant has more of that surprise factor. And yeah, just being able to fire it off at instant speed at the end of their turn is a really nice play pattern. I hate tapping out with this deck. So I don't do any meddling mages or exalted angels out of the sideboard. I've thought about cards like Arcane Laboratory, which would out of the sideboard as well, which would be amazing if it resolved. But like tapping mana on your main phase is the antithesis of what Landstill is all about. You're giving your opponent an opportunity to make their counter spells live, and you're putting shields down when you pass over to their turn, or not as many shields up as you could if you had all your mana open. So Disenchant feeds into that philosophy.
It does. Excellent. I love that part of game theory. So with that in mind, you still chose to play a powder keg.
Yeah. You need to kill those meddling mages naming swords to plowshares somehow. That's basically why the one powder keg is in there. It's just an alternate way to kill stuff. Solves a lot of problems. I like to say it doesn't do anything well, but it does everything okay. It's a little jack of all trades. It can clean up an enemy treetop village or Mishra's factory, can clear away enemy Decree of Justice tokens. The deck gets to see a lot of cards, so having sort of little silver bullets to dig for, you have a decent chance of seeing them. So there's definitely spots where it's like, ooh, I really need a powder keg to clear away these two meddling mages naming Swords to Plowshares and Wrath of God. They're not killing me yet because I'm still holding them off with Mishra's factories, but geez, I do need to find that powder keg one of these days, and you impulse until you find it. That can happen.
Certainly, I can definitely see that being the case. Your counterspell suite. From what I recall, most Landstill decks run between 6 and 7 counterspells, and you're on the full suite of 10, 4 counterspell, 4 mana leak, and 2 prohibit. Was there a reason you wanted the extra counterspells, and was there consideration into possibly moving to the 3 mana counterspells like Absorb or Forbid that I generally see in decks as like a 1 or 2 of?
Yeah, I've played with the 3 mana counter spells in the past, and I definitely felt as I started playing the deck that I wanted more hard counters. It felt really important to have just a good arsenal of hard counters to fight against other control decks. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff you need to counter in the format. And I wanted them to be as cheap as possible and to be as light on blue mana requirements as possible, because that is a big constraint in this deck. The fact that counterspell costs 2 blue, you will often have more counterspells in your hand than you can deploy all in one turn just because you're blue constrained. So I like the mana leaks and I like the prohibits because they only cost 2 mana and one of them is blue. There's I think when I played Forbid or when I played Absorb, they just felt too clunky. It was too easy for my opponent to shut me down with Rishadan Port or Wasteland and for the card not to get its value.
No, that makes sense. It kind of aligns with what you said earlier. So very streamlined. Was there any consideration given to Enlightened Tutor?
I didn't want to go down a card. I've seen other people do it. It never tempted me because every card is so valuable. In Landstill, you're winning games by the skin of your teeth. One thing I like, there's a lot of cases where it's sort of borderline between hard casting Decree of Justice and cycling Decree of Justice. And in a lot of spots, it's very tempting to hard cast it because you get these big fat angels that can win the game in just 1 or 2 turns. But I almost always, unless I really, really know for sure that the opponent has nothing, will cycle the Decree of Justice. Part of that is just because, the soldiers will get the job done most of the time just as well. And part of that is because you can do it at instant speed so that you don't have to ever go shields down, not even for a turn. But also part of that is they might have a way to deal with it. They might have their own powder keg or a pernicious deed or God knows what. So I want to be able to draw that card to stay in the game, keep it, get me that much closer to the next Decree of Justice or maybe hit a standstill or whatever. So yeah, in a lot of matchups, I think every single card really matters, and Enlightened Tutoring is not something I ever want to be doing, even for a really powerful effect like what's it called, a Humility or a Circle of Protection red or a Standstill. Going down a card is really deadly for Standstill. That's also part of why I really didn't want to, I never did the Parallax Tide, Stifle, Chain of Vapor version of the deck, even when Tide was legal. The combo, if you have it, is obviously powerful.
I was going to say, you didn't play the best version of the deck when it was playable?
I did not. I was always
He was raised, Shane. This man has
parents. He was raised proper. I get it. But us degenerates.
Yeah. But no, the real clincher for me for not wanting to play that version, I mean, besides the fact that I did not like tapping out for Parallax Tide, was that I didn't want to be in situations where I had a random Chain of Vapor or a random Stifle in my hand that yes, they can give you a little tempo edge, but they're not really a full card. They're at best half a card or something. And I really feel like the games that Landstill wins, it uses every single card. And I don't ever want to play Enlightened Tutor type effects to go down a card.
Excellent. Yeah, very much in line with what you said earlier. It is incredibly streamlined. Last question for the main deck is the mana base. Generally, I'm used to seeing more tap lands out of Landstill, either 2 Coastal Towers or 2 Ferry Concave, and not a Core Haven. What was your decision-making process for those 3 cards?
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Fairy Conclave. I have 1 in the deck because I do just want a little bit of extra ways to close the game, just in case they, duress away my Decree of Justices and cast Haunting Echoes or whatever. Like I want one more card that fits in the deck that can actually deal damage to my opponent. But it's not a great card. I don't like it for like, random attacks and blocks in the mid game. The fact that it comes into play tapped really sucks. And for the Coastal Tower, the mana is not great, but a Coastal Tower sometimes can save your life when otherwise you'd be tapping a Darkar Wastes and dealing yourself obscene amounts of damage that way. But yeah, I really don't love the comes into play taps land. So those are the two little concessions I made because I felt like that minimal amount of comes to play tap lands was kind of necessary. For the Core Haven, that always used to be a Dust Bowl for most of the time that I played the deck. I would always run 3 Dust Bowl. And I think I kind of have always had a philosophy that I really want to max out on the card Standstill. I really want the card Standstill to be as good as possible. And that means filling my deck with as many cards as I can that operate under Standstill without being a spell. And ways to deal with my opponents, Treetop Villages, Mishra's Factories, whatnot, under Standstill. So that means, 3 Decree of Justice, obviously, the man lands, obviously, but also having a lot of Dust Bowls really helps with that, just to, clean up their Treetop Villages and whatnot. So I did decide to cut a Dust Bowl right before LobsterCon because I was doing some testing against Dreadnought and just felt like, man, I really want one more like land-based way to just stop a Dreadnought. That would just be so nice. They can't even counterspell it. I mean, they can stifle it, but like, yeah, it's really effective against Dreadnought. So that was why I stuck in the Core Haven. And it does a decent Dust Bowl impression. Like it can stop an attacking Treetop Village. It's not really where you want to be with it, but it does do something generically under Standstill. But yes, it's really there as just yet another anti-Dreadnought card.
That makes sense. Moving on to the sideboard, it seems pretty stock, but I have a couple observations about it. Nothing in the sideboard is kind of for like the mid-range matchup. Like you have annuls for the kind of the combo decks like Enchantress and Replenish and even Dreadnought. Anti-red cards for the aggro decks. Teferi's Response, which is for basically anything with Wasteland, I believe. Tormod's Crypt is just for combos decks. And the Thawing Glaciers is for the control matchup. Like, is mid-range that good?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by mid-range. I think, maybe the biggest class of what I would consider mid-range decks in the format are all the Terravore decks, whether that's Terra Oath or Terrageddon. And
yeah, that's basically what I was getting at.
Yeah. So for those decks, I definitely take them very seriously. And my anti-Terravore package is the 2 Thawing Glaciers and the 2 Teferi's Response. So I've played a lot against Terravore, and they're trying to attack your mana base. And so obviously Teferi's Response is just a super powerful answer to anyone who's attacking your mana base. And the Thawing Glaciers is also just like a, basically free non-spell way to just pad your mana, make those land drops. The history with those Thawing Glaciers and my thought process behind them was it started out as a control mirror card. So when I would play the Landstill mirror matches, I thought, wow, making land drops is just so important. You build up to bigger Decree of Justices. You can get Dust Bowl advantage. It's just all about having more lands. And in those matchups, you get so excited every time you draw an island or a flooded strand, and you get so disappointed every time it's a freaking counterspell. So I was like, why don't I put Thawing Glaciers in my sideboard as like the mirror breaker? And it worked really well. And then I started boarding it in other matchups too, namely anybody that's attacking my mana base, these Terravore decks. And it worked really well against them too. So it's a super strong card against them. Thawing Glaciers and Teferi's Response are kind of similar, but they're a little. It's just a diversification of that kind of effect. The Teferi's Response is a little narrow. You got to have 2 mana untapped. It can get red blasted, But the thawing glaciers is just a land drop that you make that every turn, and it pads your land count to pull you ahead in mid range and control matchups. But yeah, I generally only bring in the thawing glaciers if it's some kind of matchup where it's either a like super long grindy control mirror, like against the Landstill mirror, or if it's some place where my mana base is under attack in a serious way. I will not bring in thawing glaciers against like some other random mid-range deck that's not specifically trying to attack my mana base.
The Rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, that all seems again in line with the game plan that you elaborated on earlier. Is there any other card choices you wanted to like draw focus to?
The absence of Meddling Mage and Exalted Angel, because those are pretty standard in the deck. I started out trying with those, specifically Exalted Angel. That's like a classic Landstill thing to do, is do the change up sideboard with the angels. In fact, I was inspired to do that based on playing this deck similar to this one in Standard. So this was in like Onslaught Mirrodin Standard, and I played a blue-white control deck kind of like this. And we always loved doing the change up, the rug pull sideboard plan of bringing in the Exalted Angels and doing the beatdown, and the opponents would never be ready for that. So that was one of the things that actually kind of drew me into pre-modern, is like, oh yes, I'm going to play blue-white control and I'm going to do the angel sideboard plan again. But when I tried it in pre-modern, I felt like it never actually worked the way I wanted. My opponents always still had Swords to Plowshares or whatever in their deck, even after sideboarding. I think maybe that was in part because, maybe some of them were expecting the angels to come in. Maybe some of them just didn't have enough good cards to bring in to take out the Swords to Plowshares for. Or maybe, they figured like, well, it can always still kill a Mishra's Factory. It's not that bad. And like all too often, I felt like I would be boarding in these angels and then they would just be biting the dust for, 6 or 7 mana investment from me, 1 mana investment from my opponent. And like, that's my sideboard plan, really? Like I'm bringing in this card from my sideboard so that I can get 7 for 1 on mana, like out, and also turning on what used to be the worst card in my opponent's deck and now making it really, really good. So that plan just never felt like it quite worked the way I wanted it to. And eventually I kind of came around to feeling like, the strength of Landstill is that it just has no exposure to a lot of the angles of attack that other people fill their decks with, and let's keep it that way. That's something strong we have going for us on the Landstill side, is that Swords to Plowshares is not a good card against us. Don't give that up post board. So when I see Landstill players, boarding into a bunch of angels and mages and then tapping out, putting their shields down to put a freaking meddling mage on the battlefield, and then what are you even going to name? You're not going to stop your opponent's strategy single-handedly with 1 meddling mage. Like, are you going to name Swords to Plowshares? That you're hurting yourself if you name Swords to Plowshares. So I feel like Meddling Mage is a powerful card in pre-modern if it's like part of an aggressive line that you're taking. If it's shutting off of Swords to Plowshares so that you can beat down with Meddling Mage paired with his buddy Psychotog, then that's pretty good. But I do not like it as a sideboard plan of the Landstill deck. I just want to stay creatureless.
So that makes, again, perfect sense with what you alluded to earlier. Yeah, the list looks amazing overall. I'm sure we'll have it posted somewhere. It's like pretty stock, but the changes are significant, the ones that you've made, and it definitely reflected in your results.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy with the list. I'm, always like tweaking it a little bit here and there. The sideboard is going through little changes. I've got a little spice planned to change up the sideboard before Sacred Torch this coming weekend, but not going to reveal my secrets quite yet.
Excellent. Yeah. We can't wait to see what it is.
Yeah. So that finishes our deck tech. That was very evocative, skillfully interrogated and satisfactorily answered. So we're going to go on a little break, but before we go, Duress Crew has a ghost sponsor. The one stipulation is that we have to shout out Second Chance Animal Services. This is a local animal shelter and animal welfare organization in Massachusetts. They are a registered registered charity. They publish their tax returns. They're a no-kill shelter. and they check all the boxes for me to have an advertisement on Hardcast. So we have taken to having an adoptable pet of the episode, and Andy picked the pet. Andy, who'd you pick?
I picked Dante, really adorable dog. Is that Beagle? 13 years old. Dante is also the name of the venue for the biggest pre-modern tournament of the year, LobsterCon. So I feel like this is a good pre-modern spirit animal to have.
Excellent. She looks very robust. Like this isn't a dog that you can like, she'll like roll off the couch and break something. She looks sturdy,
Yeah.
Yeah. She looks very, I don't know, she looks like a little Jersey cow or something with the splotches. Yeah.
She does have kind of an adorable little cow thing going on. Yeah.
Oh, she's got a little bio here on the website. Let's see here. Oh, she's slow to trust. Okay. Oh, she's an experienced escape artist. So maybe if you were considering creating a new, loving, responsible home for Dante, you may want to keep your home secure. Let's see here. Oh, she's escaped before. Okay, so this would be for the advanced dog owner in the crowd, but I know that the pre-modern community, there's an advanced dog owner amongst you. Stability, routine, and home where she can feel secure. That's all. That's all I want. Pretty reasonable ask if you ask me. Little update on the last adoptable pet. Buongiorno the cat was fostered by a member of the pre-modern community. So this feels real good that we're doing this. So we're gonna go on a little break, and when we get back, we'll go into the day of the tournament and Andy's tournament experience. And we're back. I'm here with Shane Echeverria and Andy Voellmer. He is hot off his victory at the DuressFest Summer Regional. Took a little break. We learned a little bit about Andy's magic biography and his very thoughtful and astute and exacting Landstill. I was about to say brew, but it definitely ain't that. So you are a member of the Order of the Sacred Torch. DuressCrew's most hated rivals because Zoo Crew is not even worth paying a second thought to. So you were a member of a sortie, a raiding party, if you will, that elected to come up to Worcester. Thank you for coming. So can you tell us about maybe the drafting your contingent, or the thought process, or like how'd this wild idea get it into your heads?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us in New York, when we saw that the summer regional was happening, we started to hatch some plans to go on a little raiding party up north there. But I almost didn't go because the day before was my birthday, and I had a bunch of friends over drafting, and we did cubes, we did a chaos draft with a bunch of old school packs, and we were up till like 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. Playing Magic the night before, and I was not sure I'd be up for traveling 3 hours in the car to a Magic tournament the very next day. But then I was like, you know what? Screw it. It's pre-modern. Let's do it. So I signed up to go and got 3 hours of sleep the night before, hopped out of bed at 6 a.m. and took an Amtrak train with Dave Kaplan, who won the Order of the Sacred Torch Showdown last year, playing Dreadnought. He's kind of one of our local Dreadnought specialists. And we then met up with a couple other Order of the Sacred Torch crew members, Chris Baviello and Chris Paulison, who picked us up in Connecticut. And then we drove on up for a few hours. It was really fun carpooling to a Magic tournament all together like that, swapping stories about JSS tournaments we'd played back in the day, deck techs in the car. It was a really fun scene. We showed up to the event. I made sure I was well caffeinated to compensate for the sleep deprivation, and got going.
The members of there were other members, DFB and Sunny. No, not DFB, SWB.
SWB. Yeah.
Yes. And
The
I
one and only
am,
legendary Stephen Wyatt
yeah,
Bush. Yeah.
yeah. I like those two quite a bit. The others, I don't know quite so much. I've had, passing words with David Kaplan, perfectly courteous, although I don't know him that well. But Sunny and SWB, I am in much closer contact with. And they're a couple of good lads. I really enjoy their company.
Yeah, they're great.
And
They came up the night before, so they said they
got it.
didn't think they could do a drive up and play a whole tournament all in one day. So they stayed in a hotel in Worcester area the night before. I stayed in a hotel the night after. I did not think I'd be able to do the drive both ways on so little sleep. And actually, after the tournament, Shane was so kind as to shuttle me over to my hotel. So we got a little post-tournament debrief there. Thank you for the ride, Shane.
Yeah.
So, of course, it was actually a great conversation. So I appreciated it. Thank you.
Shane relayed some of it to me, and that was one of the reasons I was like, "Oh, Shane, we got to get you on this episode." So cool. So you show up, and you're like, "All right." So I hear about these assholes in Duress Crew. What was your perception of? I mean, did it meet your standard, or did you just walk in and just like, "Oh, I got this on lock. No threats detected." Like, what was your perception?
Well, so the whole thing was coming pretty shortly after LobsterCon. I had just traveled to LobsterCon it was my first ever LobsterCon, the biggest pre-modern tournament I'd ever been to. I did pretty well at LobsterCon. I came in 12th place. I lost the win and in for top 8 against Claire Ackerman. And so I noted that Claire was there and, desiring of getting revenge, but she's a strong player, and I was definitely aware that was a challenging opponent in the room. I'm still actually not sure if Brian Sue was there, the LobsterCon champion. Do you guys know? Was he registered for this? I didn't see him.
I don't think
he did not play.
Okay. He beat me in LobsterCon as well. We played earlier in the tournament, and so I had changed up my sideboard a little bit to be potentially stronger in that matchup. He plays Replenish, so when I played him at LobsterCon, I felt like I just didn't have quite enough juice to feel confident in my Replenish matchup. So I tested it a bunch and ended up sticking in a couple more Tormod scripts, thinking that was like the extra ingredient that I needed to really feel confident in that matchup. So I had sort of been hoping maybe I'd get a chance to play against him. I don't know, hoping, dreading somewhere in that spectrum, a rematch against him as well, and see if I could swing it the other way this time. So those were people that were definitely on my radar. But no, I mean, I think there's obviously a really strong Magic scene up there, and I felt happy to be a part of it, but I did not feel at all like I was destined to crush all these weaker players or anything like that. Lots of respect for the pre-modern scene up in your area.
Appreciate it.
That's so, yeah. Me and Shane had quite a day. We'll keep our portions brief. So I was the tournament organizer for it, or really more tournament operator. One of the things that Duress Crew is trying to do as we look forward to DuressFest is that we have like this really stable skill set amongst ourselves. Like I'm normally running ticket charity raffle stuff. I was particularly gregarious in that role at LobsterCon, if you were there. And we are trying to build our bench strength and get a lot of like cross training and specialties. So I have historically held the lane as the carnival barker for raffle tickets. But this time I was the TO, and we had started using a new software, Melee, which there's like a learning curve that you like develop these skills. So I kind of a rough start. There were a couple of mysteries to solve to get this tournament going. Players they were like adjacent no-shows, so they just scooted seats and played each other. And there was a player who showed up late and then just started playing one of the buys. So it's not Yeah. So it's not hard to solve a problem. It's pretty easy. Like Melee is a functioning tournament software. It is very hard to solve a mystery. Um, it's sort of for like I work in manufacturing. So it's like if there's an error in the wiring diagram, no big deal. If there's an error in the wire labeling, it's no big deal. But if it's like there's two, it takes all day to sort out. And that was like it took, we kicked off at like 11:45, and I try to keep it. My metric for success is under 25 minutes. So I own that. But I was very satisfied with my round by round turnover. I was happy with that, and kept the players meeting kind of short, so that was nice. Said a lot of words, and I think I did it quickly. Shane, how was your tournament experience?
It was my first time doing the charity raffle. Previously, I was the TO for LobsterCon, and I had done a regional or two before that. And in my past life 20 years ago, I was the TO and judge for my LGS for many, many years. So I had a lot of experience doing that. But as you alluded to earlier, we want to kind of build a redundancy, a bench strength, so we can try different roles. And I kind of dove headfirst into this role as the raffle organizer, and it was something a little bit different than what I was used to. I did retail management in my previous life for a decade, so it was kind of like bringing back that old feeling of talking to people, having menial conversations, and like just kind of being friendly. And like I was slightly apprehensive about it before I did it, but the pre-modern community is amazing. And everyone I interacted with was amazing, and I was thrilled to do what I did, and we ended up raising a great amount of money for charity. I think it ended up being like roughly $1,500.
Yeah, it was about that. Shane, what was your favorite thing that was on the auction block? Or not the auction block, but the charity Try Your Luck block.
I can't imagine you don't already know this, but it was the Mike Long signed Rootwater Thief that has mysteriously not been claimed after it's been won. Is this the second or third raffle in a row?
Second time. It just went unclaimed.
So it has been won twice and it has been unclaimed, and it is a Rootwater Thief signed and altered by Mike Long, the player that is featured on the art in the card. So I would have loved to have ascertained that, and I would have built a deck to play it. I would have done something, Esper humanish just to put it in the deck. But I really, really, it still is unclaimed, correct, Billy?
That is correct.
Okay, so it'll be going up again at our next regional, and I hope that someone actually gets it, because I'll probably offer them money for it.
We Duress Crew as an organization, we keep kind of two separate buckets of our assets. So like if you just like walk up to us and hand us something, and I have to like, what is this for? Are you being cool and like spotting our prizing, or is it like, is this charitable? And it's like, I bought that Rootwater Thief on eBay for $28, and it's like I put it in the charity side of our org, and it has to stay there. Like I can't dig it back, and it's just been generating so much charity revenue because people want it, but then like somebody like leaves with their friend before, and then I just like, whose is this? And then nobody answers, and it's like, all right, the thief steals again. So
and like we've been offered cash for this. We're like, players have come up and be like, we will offer you X dollars to just take this card, and we're like, no, we're on this charity raffle model, and last two raffles it has gone unclaimed. So I think it may be cursed, possibly by Mike Long himself.
I mean, maybe it's a blessing. Maybe it's like, because it's generating charity revenue every time it's not getting claimed. It just adds more to the bucket. You know what it is? Maybe it's like one of Mike Long's Horcruxes or something, or maybe it's like like all of his bad karma that he's generated is like the universe is in a sort of equilibrium, and like it's got his essence by his signature, and so like all of his bad vibes are like balanced out by the charity revenue that this card is generating. I don't
Mike
know.
Long's
There's
like
something.
hanging out in the back rooms of the tournament, and whoever wins the raffle, he like leaps out from the shadows and puts some
Yeah.
chloroform over their mouth and drags them back.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mike
Yeah.
Long, if you're listening, ignore what everyone else said. I will send you 3 more to sign so we can auction a playset. So if you're listening, I would love to charity raffle a playset of Rootwater Thief signed by you.
This is very Russia if you're listening. Um, okay. And now, so that was my day. That was your day, Shane. And now for the man of the hour, Andy Voellmer, how was your day? Let's do a round by round.
Yeah, it was great. I just also want to say, amazing job with the tournament organizing, you guys, both at the LobsterCon and this Summer Regionals. Super cleanly run, professional tournament. Really enjoyed the whole thing, and hope to go to many more.
High praise. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Let's
So
see.
do you want to
Yeah,
start with round 1? I don't know. I'm going to remind you of your matchups because I know that I'm human and I sometimes don't remember matchups. So round 1, you played against Replenish.
Yeah, I have a little notes sheet actually, so I do remember. But I didn't catch all the opponents' names. I don't know if the software you have has everyone's name on it.
It only gives us their pseudonyms, the names that they registered for Melee, so we won't go over them.
Okay. Yeah, so I had, I've played the Replenish versus Landstill matchup a decent bit.
Actually, I got it. I'll interrupt. Yeah, it's Caleb. We'll go for first names here. Caleb, unless I know them.
Okay.
But yeah. Yep.
Sure.
Okay,
so we'll do first names.
Caleb Replenish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a beautiful, like a foiled out Replenish deck, really shiny. Let's see. I've played the matchup a decent bit, and I have thoughts on the matchup. With Landstill, you have to decide in every matchup what are the cards you're not gonna fight over. You can't counterspell everything. You've got to decide what can you absorb naturally and what do you have to spend a card to stop. So against Replenish, I think my sort of quick rundown is the Parallax Wave is a card that you do not need to fight over. You let them cast that Parallax Wave, you let it slowly tick down to 0 counters, and it's not going to do anything. Another reason why you definitely don't want to be bringing in mages and angels, because you want their Parallax Wave to be a dead card, or not a totally dead, but a not super useful card. Opalescence also you don't have to treat as a super scary threat. Obviously, if they have Opal and Wave together, that will beat you down and kill your creatures, so you got to do something about that eventually. But it's not super urgent. You can disenchant it a little later, and it'll be okay. But I'll try and counterspell an Opalescence if I have nothing better to do when they put it on the stack. Cards that you obviously have to take super duper seriously from them are the Replenish itself, if they board it in Sabo's Webs, if they board it in Exalted Angels or Meddling Mages, you got to kill those with your Swords to Plowshares or Powder Keg or whatnot. So you do need a smattering of removal post board to deal with any possible angels or mages that they throw at you. And they'll try and overload you as well with like Abeyance followed up by Replenish, which you need 2 counter spells in 1 turn. So you need a lot of counter spells to fight against some of their like really key threats. A big question for me has always been, what about attunement? Do you have to stop their attunement? And I've tried both approaches, fighting over the attunement and letting them have the attunement, figuring, it's card disadvantage every time they use it, so I'm fine with this. My current attitude towards the matchup is that while attunement is technically card disadvantage, it really gives them a lot of agency to sculpt the perfect hand, the perfect amount of mana, and go all in and overload you all in 1 turn with however many abeyances and replenishes they need to have. So I don't think it's really safe to let them just spin attunement to their heart's content. I do think you want to fight over it as the Landstill player.
Okay, so
and that also means...
So advice for people playing Landstill versus Replenish is we need to fight over attunement.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And what goes hand in hand with that is you're not giving them an outlet to discard their excess lands. So you are hoping that they flood out. You're hoping that they run out of gas. You're hoping that they draw more lands, more Ancient Tombs, more Skycloud Expanse. Have at it. Just please don't draw a whole bunch of Abeyance and Replenish. And so what that means is, because I'm hoping that they flood out and that I save my counter spells for the really key threats, I don't want to be one-for-oneing their lands with my Dust Bowl. So I actually board out Dust Bowl in that matchup because I'm fighting their ability to filter cards, not fighting their mana. And I'm just going to slowly wait for them to flood out and have 12 lands in play.
Do you
so I believe my sideboard plan there is in...
Sorry, I was going to say, do you board in Thawing Glaciers to make up for it?
No, because the Thawing Glaciers and the Dust Bowls actually kind of go together, because Thawing Glaciers give you like an infinite stream of Dust Bowl food. So there's some matchups where I board in Thawing Glaciers. There's some matchups where I board out Dust Bowl and potentially Core Haven, but I usually want the Thawing Glaciers and the Dust Bowls together. They work well as a pair. So I believe my sideboard configuration for Replenish that I like right now is I bring in 4 Annul and 2 Tormod's Crypt. That's like my new little secret, weapon against Replenish. And I board out 3 Swords to Plowshares, 1 Wrath of God, and 2 Dust Bowls. So then my removal suite configuration that I have left over after that is 1 Swords to Plowshares, 1 Wrath of God, 1 Powder Keg, 1 Humility. Just a sort of mix of things that can fight angels and meddling mages, and they all have different names, so the meddling mage is not super effective. So that's basically, went according to plan, more or less, in that first match. I won 2-0 against Caleb. I think in game 2, I remember he spun attunement a few times. I was like short on counter spells, so I didn't have the opportunity to counter it, or maybe decided, I didn't want to spend my one and only counter spell on the attunement. But eventually he discarded the attunement itself and then was no longer spinning attunement and still didn't really have a whole lot of action. So I was a little surprised that he had discarded the attunement. I thought maybe he would keep spinning it, but I'm not sure what was in his hand. But in any case, yeah, that was a relatively straightforward 2-0. Just countered all his threats and eventually cycled a Decree of Justice for the win.
Excellent. It seems I've played Landstill in the past, and that seemed like more of a coin flip matchup to me, where I felt like neither of us were favored. Whoever kind of draws better wins the match, so a 2-0 is pretty awesome. Round 2, you played against the Duress Crew's own Nick Pinn, who was on Reanimator. Can you tell us about that matchup?
Yeah, Reanimator is a really interesting deck. So that one went to 3 games. I'm not going to remember all the details, but his main reanimation targets, he had a Chroma, and he had, I think it's called Petrodon. It's this like 7-drop red creature. It's a 5/6 fire breathing. Yes. Yeah, and it eats 2-year lands when it comes out. So I believe in game 1, I have so many counter spells and so much removal. Even if he gets a big fatty into play, Swords to Plowsharesing it or Wrathing it is really effective. But they have Cabal Therapy and Duress, so maybe they can strip away all my answers before going for it. But it's a tall order for them to get rid of all my answers and my ability to respond to their threats. So I think game 1, I took it down just by having enough answers for all his creatures. Game 2 was a super close one where I stopped his first reanimation target, but then he had a second one, and it ended up being super down to the wire, where he had lost a lot of life from casting Reanimate, and I was trying to crack back with Mishra's Factories, and I think I got him down to 1. He did beat me, but he was at 1 life when he won the game. And then in game 3, I was tanking for a while on how to sideboard. Obviously I was bringing in the Tormod's Crypts, but I think I was, going back and forth on like, do I want disenchant effects? Because maybe he's playing Animate Dead. And then when I saw he had Achromas, I realized he's probably not playing a build with Animate Dead, so I should not have disenchant effects. But I realized that since one of his reanimation targets was this big red creature, the Petrodon, I should probably have some blue blasts in my deck. So I boarded in a bunch of blue blasts for game 3, and that ended up winning me the match. He did reanimate a Petrodon, and I blue blasted it, and that clinched it.
That is amazing. I love that interaction. So yeah, that is very next level. I much appreciated. So for round 3, we have you against New England Grinder Josh. Do you remember much of that matchup?
Yes, that was another replenish match and another relatively straightforward 2-0.
I see him as on next level Tog. Is that possible?
Wait. No, sorry. Yes, you're right. Sorry, I'm thinking of round 4. Sorry.
That is round excellent, because your round 4 opponent's deck list got deleted, so I appreciate you remembering round 4.
Okay. Yes. You are right that round 3 was against Josh Cicio, who was on Esper Tog. And I had played against Josh with the same matchup at LobsterCon as well. This was another LobsterCon grudge match because he beat me there as well. So when we played at LobsterCon, this was the last match of day 1, and I was just dead tired and like not playing my best. I'm not sure if I would have won even if I had been playing my best, but I was definitely like running on fumes when we played at LobsterCon, and so I wanted to, if not get revenge, at least like give him a better game this time. The Esper Tog deck is an interesting matchup from the Landstill side. I feel like blue-black Psychotog is pretty easy for me to push through because they have duresses, but other than that, their counterspells are just worse than mine. They're using foil, which is just such bad card disadvantage, and they're using gush, so they're just setting themselves back on their land count so much. And control mirrors are a lot about building up the land counts. This card Psychotog itself is just also very vulnerable to Swords to Plowshares, Wrath of God. So I've never felt too fearful of facing down blue-black Tog opponents. But the white deck, like all the white cards, really helped them a lot in the Landstill matchup. The Glory to protect their Togs from Swords to Plowshares is really good. Meddling Mages can supplement the Psychotog beatdown plan pretty nicely by turning off your Swords to Plowshares as your most efficient removal spell. And then the Threat of Armageddon is really scary too. They can arrange things so they fight a big counter war, tap you out, and then Armageddon, and you can't really recover from that. Armageddon's pretty much lights out for Landstill. So it's a matchup you've got to navigate very carefully. And against Josh this time, I played tight and I got there. I don't think I had any. It feels like a close, tricky match that could go either way.
Josh is a member of an old legacy playgroup in Worcester. So the Duress Crew lore is that we are sort of like the punkest dudes at any Magic tournament and the nerdiest guys at any punk show. And Josh Cicio is like the OG, like extremely deep Worcester lore local homie, and he was a terror in the old Worcester legacy scene. He is very, very good at Magic. So
I've seen that firsthand. Well, I'm glad I managed to sneak a win off him this time.
Yeah, he's good. He's real good.
You just consecutively beat, if not 2 of the top 5 Duress Crew, if not Duress Crew adjacent members, back to back.
Nice. Yeah, that's how we drew it up when we were carpooling up here from New York.
Just knocking them down one after another.
Too easy, right? Yeah.
Right. All right. Round 4, your opponent deck list has been lost, but you said they were on replenish. Can I have you go over that? I sent it
to you in DMs, Shane.
Yes, I do have it. Yeah. I just wanted Andy to speak of it.
Yep.
That's right. So this was another replenish match that again felt like it went pretty much according to plan. I, ignored the parallax waves, lightly fought over the opalescences, fought hard over the attunement and the seal of cleansing. I also need to fight pretty hard against because that can neuter one of my standstills if they resolve it before I resolve the standstill, and I need that standstill to get the card advantage. And fought hard over the abeyance and replenish itself. So that's
abeyance main.
Yeah. A lot of them play abeyance main these days. Yeah. But
So I wonder,
go ahead.
So for the Landstill novices in the room, you allow parallax wave and you fight over opalescence and seal cleansing?
Yeah, I allow parallax wave. I fight a little bit over opalescence. It's not an emergency if the opalescence resolves, because it doesn't do anything on its own. If they have another enchantment like a parallax wave with the opalescence, you've still got some time to dig for an answer. They're beating down for 4 every turn. That's not the end of the world. You can eventually find a disenchant to disenchant the opalescence, and you're back in the green. But I do so, and then after that, seal of cleansing is something that I fight medium hard over because it effectively counters one of my standstills, and attunement is something I fight medium hard over. And then the things that you absolutely must counter are the replenish and the abeyance that leads into the replenish. Yeah.
Excellent.
And then post-board, you also really have to fight against the Sabos webs. So they have a lot of threats they can throw at you. You got to have enough counters for it all. Yeah.
And that matchup basically went without hiccup, right? It looked pretty smooth on the results.
That one, exactly. Went pretty smooth. I, resolved standstills, drew an ungodly number of cards, had more counter spells than he had threats, and that was all she wrote. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's move to round 5. It looks like your opponent was on Hermit Feb.
Yeah. So round 5, I played against Michael Benz V.
Yep.
I think does he go by that, or does he go by MBZ? I saw in coverage.
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll call him Michael Benz V. Yeah. So yeah, he was a really skilled Hermit Feb player. We got to chatting a bit. He's actually a math professor, so we talked math a little. And then I played him again in the finals. So we played twice this tournament. But yeah, I had never played against Hermit Feb before. I'd sort of seen the deck a bit from afar and was kind of terrified of it. And maybe a week before the Duress Crew Summer Regional, I realized Hermit Feb is a pretty popular deck. It's getting pretty widely played. I should really learn how this deck works. So I listened to the podcast on Eternal Durdles. Zach Clark did an interview with Galen LeMay, who top-aided LobsterCon with Hermit Feb, and they did a deep dive, 1.5 hour long deck tech interview, and I listened to the whole thing, and just, Galen was masterfully explaining all these different complicated HFEB lines, and I certainly didn't remember and internalize every detail, but I got some of the broad strokes and got some of the ideas of what the key cards are, what the key timings are, when the combo can get disrupted by a Swords to Plowshares or a Tormod's Crypt, or when it can't. So I went into this matchup thinking oh God, how well do I actually remember how this deck works? Am I going to be able to understand all the lines he's able to take and not fuck this up too badly by Swords to Plowsharing at the wrong time when it doesn't actually do anything? So I was a bit nervous about that, but then I kind of realized by the end of the match, okay, even if you are a total HFEB master and you know all the lines inside and out, that doesn't necessarily help you when you're playing against HFEB, because every HFEB puzzle of how can you win from this position is very sensitive to what cards are in your hand. And if you don't know what cards are in your HFEB opponent's hand, you don't even have the parameters of the puzzle that they're trying to solve. So like maybe if I could perfectly solve every possible HFEB puzzle, it still wouldn't help me fight them because I don't know what the relevant puzzle is. I don't know what's in their hand. Also, you don't know, they're probably not going to find the perfect line every time. So they might mess something up. The line that they take might not be the optimal solution to the HFEB puzzle for any given situation. So as the opponent, you only have to understand it well enough to like follow the outlines of what winning line they are trying to take and understand whether or not it loses to swords to plowshares at this and that spot. And I feel like I was able to do that pretty well. So I was proud of myself that I remembered Galen's interview well enough to not fuck that up. But yeah, it was a close match. It went to 3 games, and they're a scary deck because they can kill you out of nowhere, any one of 1,000 different ways, and they have Cabal therapies to back it all up. So you've really got to be on your toes. But on the plus side, you have very powerful pieces of interaction that can disrupt their combo really effectively. And if you just play conservatively and carefully, sometimes that's enough. So yeah, I won that match 2-1. I don't remember the details of exactly what spells were cast in what order, but it's probably not the most interesting part anyways.
All right, we had a little technical issue. The internet is not shit in Worcester, Massachusetts, and yet we endure. And we are picking it back up from round 5. Shane, where'd you leave us?
I left us as Andy was explaining how he won this HFEB match, which I thought was a bad match, but it looks like he pulled through 2-1.
Yeah. And I can't remember the details of that match. I rematched against that same HFEB opponent in the finals, and I have a much better memory of that one. So maybe we can dig into the matchup when we get to that stage.
Absolutely. So the next 2 rounds were uneventful because you're 5-0 at this point, correct?
Well, they were a little more eventful than I'd bargained for, actually. So I was 5-0. I was thrilled. I thought I was like locked for top 8, and now I'd be able to double draw. So I went and got some food, called my wife, called my mom, and
Mom, I'm about to win this tournament.
Exactly. Like, remember when you doubted me? You told me I was wasting my time playing cards.
Look at me now at twitch.tv/DuressCrew.
She was always a very supportive mom, and I appreciate her very much. So I drew round 6 and then came back for round 7. I was like, all right, boys, we ready to draw again? And my opponent was the Enchantress player who ended up in top 8. I believe his handle was Boston Snorlax. I'm not sure what his actual name is.
Jason.
Okay. Jason was looking at the standings and saying, I don't know, man. I actually might be right on the bubble. I'm not sure if I can draw in. And so I was like, okay, well, if you think we need to play, then let's get started because the clock is ticking. And he was like, getting cold feet, really not sure, really on the fence, doing the standings math again and again. And I was like, come on, man, we got to start. If we're going to play, we got to go now. The clock is ticking. So we shuffled up. We played a lightning fast game 1, and I just kind of steamrolled him game 1. The Enchantress matchup is pretty close, I think, for Landstill. I haven't played it enough to know for sure, but if I can counter the Enchantress effects, I feel very favored. It's just all about, do I have the counter spells in time to stop those Enchantress effects from coming down? And so, for instance, if they have an Argothian Enchantress and they're on the play, then I only have 1 mana up. I can't stop that, and it might draw a whole lot of cards before I'm able to kill it with a Wrath of God or Powder Keg or Humility down the road. But if they have, Enchantress's presence and or they're on the draw, then I might have a 2-mana counterspell up ready when that thing comes down. And if I can just keep those Enchantress effects off the board, then I really like my odds in that match. So game 1 went pretty smooth, where I just, countered all his Enchantress effects, and then his deck didn't really do anything. And then after getting steamrolled game one, he's like, "So is that draw still on the table?" And at that point, I was, I was not doing this out of magnanimity. I was, doing it out of pure self-interest. I was thinking, like, let's see. I'm pretty sure I'm in top eight, whether I draw or whether I play and win. The only difference is what seed I'll be going into the top eight, and so that would make me potentially be on the play in all my matches, which could be a minor advantage in those games. But I really am risking it all if I play and he beats me. And like, it's a totally losable matchup. He could totally just, Xantid swarm me out of the game in games 2 and 3. So I decided to offer the draw again after winning game one. So I had a weird sort of 1-0 draw match for round 7 against Enchantress.
How gracious of you. I'm sure Jason appreciated that. But
He
it
thanked
ends
me
up getting
afterwards because he did make top 8 in the end. Yeah.
absolutely. So it ended up making both of you make top 8. So in top 8, it looks like your first matchup is against Claire, who you referenced as having played in LobsterCon.
That's right. Yeah. So Claire and I had an epic match in LobsterCon. That was my winning in for top 8, where
It was
she beat me.
feature match.
And it was a feature match. Yep. And it was a super cool match. I've watched the replay on YouTube. It's really good, really close games. And I, partly because it was all recorded and I could go back and rewatch it, I thought about that match afterwards and what I could have done differently. And I realized that the way I played it at LobsterCon, I did make a mistake that I think cost me the match, which is that I didn't respect the Oath of Druids enough. Now, you might think Oath of Druids is a bad card against Landstill because you don't have any creatures in your deck, right? And you'd be right, except that sometimes you have to cycle a big Decree of Justice when you haven't fully locked up and won the game yet, but you need to cycle it like to stabilize. And if you're in a spot like that, then Oath of Druids is actually pretty dang good. And that situation can come up a lot under a standstill, because under a standstill, you have a lot fewer resources to work with. You can't cast most of your spells. The only tools you've got are your man lands and your dust bowls and your Decree of Justice. So Claire played a standstill. Claire played an Oath of Druids. This was at the LobsterCon match. Then I played a standstill, and then later I had to cycle Decree and lost the game to Oath of Druids triggers. I think technically I had to break my own standstill to kill the Oath with a disenchant, but same difference. I could not win with that Oath in play, and that was what cost me the game. So I thought about it, and I had a plan going into this rematch with Claire that, like, okay, this time I remember Oath of Druids plus Standstill is not an okay combination to have if you need to use that Decree of Justice to win the game. I was sort of determined to play tighter. Also, the fact that it was a top 8 match meant no time limit. We were going to have, infinite time to play this match. We were playing really rushed at LobsterCon, so we were going to have all the time in the world to think. And I really wanted this rematch, was really excited to have that featured against Claire. And I think, the coverage cut out. There were some technical difficulties for part of it, but most of it is there to watch on the Twitch stream. I assume it's going to be on YouTube at some point too.
Absolutely.
But game 1 was a long, grindy one. And I think one interesting line I took as we got towards the late game, I had a standstill out, and that was keeping Claire pretty locked down from playing most of her spells. She had a bunch of man lands out, but I had a bunch of Decree of Justices in my hand, and I was just very slow and very patient with the Decree of Justice. There were a few times when I took big hits from the man lands because I was going to stay above 1 life, and that was all that mattered. Maybe stay above 3 life or whatever, because you might need to crack a Flooded Strand here and there. And I just want to cycle as big a Decree as possible so that I have as much juice as possible to eat attacking treetop villages and Mishra's factories and whatnot. And so I just played very conservatively. Also, there were a couple times when Claire would attack in with some man lands, and I had a big decree, but I did not cycle to create blockers. I waited until end of turn. I took the hit and then waited until end of turn to create blockers. And the reasoning there is that I really want to be able to counterspell whatever cards she's playing if she breaks Standstill. So if in second main phase she starts running out some Sylvan libraries, some Terravores, whatnot, I want to go counter, 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 counter after drawing my 3 cards off the Standstill. And so I don't want to tap out to Decree before I have that opportunity. I wanted her to go to end step, say go ahead, and then end step cycle Decree, and then untap with shield still fully up with all the counter spells in my hand. So I think I played that pretty well, and it worked out exactly as I wanted in game 1. In game 2, she started out with a super fast double Sphere of Resistance, which is really painful for the Landstill deck. I cannot fight under Sphere. I have to remove those spheres. They're a real critical target. And I was able to get rid of one of the spheres, but the other one hung around for too long, and just too much pressure on my mana. So she took that one down. And then game 3, I had the Thawing Glaciers operating. I think I only got 1 activation off of it, but that was enough. All I needed was the 1 activation to sort of pad my land count a little bit, effectively cancel out 1 Stone Rain. And, the suite of Teferi's responses and all that was enough to get me there. I guess a note on sideboarding for this matchup, I think Standstill is a great card. I keep it in this matchup. You do have to be careful. You don't want to play it too early. You want to be sure that you have the tools to be stabilized against those man lands, but they do turn the corner really hard once you are stabilized. If you've got a Decree, if you've got enough lands to get some good value out of that Decree, if you've got a Dust Bowl, then dropping a Standstill is what turns the corner for you. So I never board those out. I think that I board in 2 Teferi's Response and 2 Thawing Glaciers. And, I don't like Wrath of God. I would like to board it out, but I knew that Claire was bringing in Meddling Mages, and so I just wanted diversified ways to kill Meddling Mage. So I think I took out 2 Prohibit because it's a little narrow. I don't like Prohibit unless, all the cards I want to counter cost 2 or less, so I took out those. I believe I took out 1 Swords to Plowshares because I just did not want to be stuck with a bunch of swords in my hand against Meddling Mage. And I took out the Humility, which I think is not great in that matchup.
Excellent.
So yeah, that was an exciting win for sure.
Yeah,
normally Landstill players are ashamed of themselves and they take out the Standstills. It's like denying your own name, your own identity. But you are the true Landstill player, and you keep the Standstills in.
I almost always keep them in. I pretty much only take them out in the mirror match is the only time when they're really just totally useless because we have all the exact same cards. And yeah, I feel like you have to build your deck so that Standstill is good. If you haven't built your deck, if you don't have faith that your Standstill is a good card, then you're doing it wrong. And it does mean playing differently. It does mean, being more patient in some respects, but putting more Dust Bowls and Core Havens or whatever in your deck. But yeah, I think you have to have faith that the Standstill will come through for you. Yeah.
Andy Voellmer never takes his colors off.
Yeah, definitely in the Landstill matchup, I thought it was a heuristic that the Landstills came out against Terrageddon. So apparently I need to reevaluate that stance.
Oh yeah. So one other, I know I have a kind of an unorthodox way of playing against Terrageddon. Before that match at LobsterCon, when Claire beat me, I was undefeated in the matchup, lifetime undefeated record, something like 10-0 against Terravore decks. I sort of grouped together Terrageddon and Terra Oath. And to this day, the only one time that I've lost the matchup is that one LobsterCon match. Other than that, I'm 10-1 or something. So this strategy, I think it works. Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind. I'm glad I selected your match and Claire's match for LobsterCon. So we get a lot of valuable data out of that. So moving on to the next round, it looks like you played Evan on Goblins.
Yeah. So this one was not on coverage, and I think after being right under the spotlight, that felt like, wow, this is a real high stakes match, and it's the rematch from LobsterCon, and I was, really kind of focused, super focused in on that. After that, it felt like, okay, wow, I did it. I won my rematch. I'm not even on camera anymore. Like, are we even still in the tournament? Like, the pressure's kind of off. So I was like, not super dialed in at the beginning of my top 4 match. I kind of felt like I'd already achieved what I set out here to do. Like, we're still playing Magic. Like, what time is it? Like, can't we go to bed already? Um, so yeah, game 1, I think I played a little bit sloppy and lost. There was a critical turn where he had 2 pile drivers and a war chief. And I had a really tricky decision of like, should I counter this? The second pile driver was on the stack, and I had 1 counter spell. And should I counter that pile driver, or should I save my counter spell for a ringleader or a siege gang that might be coming down the next turn, and just try to clean up this little war chief pile driver situation with, I think I had 1 Mishra's Factory, and maybe I was like hoping I would draw another one or something. And so I decided to save my counterspell. He attacked him with everything. I woke up my factory and blocked the war chief and tapped a pump. So I ate his war chief, but I took 10 from the 2 attacking pile drivers, and that put me down to pretty low life total. And then the next turn, I just had to, block and trade with another pile driver with my factory. He did end up having a ringleader, which I countered, but I was at like pretty low life at that point, and I think that maybe I should have countered that pile driver after all. Taking 10 to the dome from the big pile driver attack was probably a bit of a mistake. So that was game 1, and I lost. Game 2 was a funny one. I had turn 1 a Darkar Wastes go. He had turn 1 Goblin Lackey go. I said, end of turn, Swords to Plowshares it. But I accidentally put the wrong card out of my hand. I put a Blue Blast out of my hand. And then I was like, whoops, sorry, I put the wrong card. I meant to put Swords to Plowshares. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So I put I Swords to Plowshares it as intended, but I had unintentionally shown him that I had a Blue Blast also. Turn 2, I untap, land, Standstill. And he sits there and looks his hand for a long time. He's like, geez, this guy he swords my turn 1 Lackey. He plays turn 2 Standstill, and I even know that he has a Blue Blast in his hand after all that, and he just concedes on the spot. I think he kept 1 lander, just like hoping to get there with the Lackey, and then faced with the prospect of like sitting there not playing spells on his 1 lander hand for a long time. It was just he played 1 turn of Magic and then conceded. So that was an odd little game 2. And then in game 3, it was a really long, grindy, strange game where I got out a Humility pretty early in the game, which fully shuts down the Goblins deck, but they still are creating all these little 1/1s. Yes, they're casting siege gangs and ringleaders as vanilla 1/1s, but that is still something. And I was drawing somewhat poorly. I was having a hard time finding lands. I remember at one point I thought I had finally turned the corner. I was going to end of turn impulse and get a land, and that was going to help me stabilize. And I impulsed, and I saw 4 spells as the top 4 cards in my deck. And I was like, are you kidding me? Couldn't find a land off an impulse. So that kind of tilted me a little bit. I felt like I was playing a little bit sloppy. And halfway through that game, I kind of, proverbially slapped myself across the face and was like, pull yourself together, Andy. You're still in this. This is a top 4 match. This is serious. I know you've made mistakes, but start playing tight from right this instant, and you can still win this match. And I did. I had to get a bit lucky because he had a handful of naturalizes, as he showed me at the end, which would have blown up my Humility. And he just never drew green for it. So yeah, I played sloppy, but got lucky and won anyways against the Goblins in game 3. Yeah.
Very nice. I was working the feature match area, the stream from the last round up until the end of the top 8, so I got to watch that match, and I was impressed with the overall. You did pull it together. I did think you were behind in that game, and you did end up winning the game. So I was very impressed for it. And then we moved on to your finals match. And your finals match, I thought was very impressive. It was against the HFEB player that you'd played earlier in the match. Earlier in the tournament, rather. And do you care to? This is actually the reason I kind of wanted to be on this podcast, because when I drove you to your hotel room, we actually had a rather in-depth conversation about the lines that your opponent could have taken or you could have taken, and there was possibly potential different outcomes to the game. And I was super interested in that, and I wanted to talk about that. So I'd like to hear about your finals match, if we could.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was the HFEB rematch, and as you say, it was really interesting, and I'd love to, get some of the speculation of alternate ways it could have gone on the record. So in game one was the really interesting game in question. My opponent, I believe he ripped apart my hand pretty well. He had a bunch of Cabal therapies. I think there was an interesting choice where I had a bunch of mana leaks in my hand. I think he had 3 mana leaks at one point, and he Cabal therapied me, and I mana leaked the front side of Cabal therapy. I could have maybe gotten gutsy and saying, I'm going to make this front half of Cabal therapy dead by hoping that he names a card that's not in my hand. I generally don't like doing that, because then they always still get to peek at your hand then. And against a deck like HFEB, if they know what to play around, it really does meaningfully improve their percentages. So I'm happy with my decision to mana leak the front half of Cabal therapy. And then when he played the back half of Cabal therapy, I double mana leaked it. That was because he was building up to so many lands that I thought that mana leaks were going to be dead later in the game. And especially if he sees my hand and knows that I have 2 mana leak in my hand, well, then they're definitely going to be dead, because he's going to be very careful not to play anything unless he's got enough mana to pay for these leaks. So I thought, okay, this is my chance. I've got to just use these mana leaks here, or they're going to be useless. Also, the other cards in my hand were Swords to Plowshares and Disenchant, which are both cards that can be very powerful tools against HFEB, but if they know you have it, they can sculpt lines that are resilient to them. So I did not want him to resolve that therapy. I thought he would probably name Swords to Plowshares, or even if he didn't, he would know that what I have is Disenchant Swords to Plowshares, and I didn't want him to know that. So
that's very sober. Just all right, I'm gonna spend 3 mana leaks to prevent a peak. That's just recognizing that was what value you could get. That's very fine. That's very precise.
Yeah, I'd say it's very heads up. You understood the value of your cards, and that Disenchant and Swords of Plowshares mattered, and Mana Leak kind of didn't. And it was the right move to trade 2 for 1, which is not easy to do against the deck that packs 8 discard spells.
Yeah, it felt like a weird play to make, but when I watched the replay, I was like, I still feel good about that play. But then the really interesting part, Shane, which you alluded to, it came a couple turns later when I resolved a Standstill. My opponent played a Volrath Shapeshifter, just a naked Shapeshifter. He didn't have a full-on combo with it. What he did have was he could discard an Achroma using the Shapeshifter's ability and just start beating down with Achroma. But I had a Dust Bowl in play, so it's not going to stay Achroma for very long, because Dust Bowl can, just kill one of their lands, change the top card of their graveyard, and it shuts down the Shapeshifter beats. So I wasn't worried about the Shapeshifter threat. I took 1 hit from Achroma, and then I shut it down with the Dust Bowl the next turn. And then I dropped a Standstill. And at that point, I still felt like, okay, I'm in solid shape here. He doesn't really have any live threats, and I've got a Standstill on the battlefield. So hopefully when he does try to resolve his next big serious threat, I'll draw 3 and be back in the game. What happened was he natural drew a Hermit, and he turned his Shapeshifter into a Hermit and activated it to mill his entire deck. And the exact sequence was he was attacking with his Shapeshifter, which was an Achroma. Then I activated the Dust Bowl to kill one of his lands, so then it was no longer Achroma, but it was still an attacking and untapped creature, because the Achroma attacked with Vigilance. And so then the top card of his deck becomes a land. And then I believe he cycled an Unearth, but then the card he drew off that was a Hermit Druid. So then he discarded the Hermit Druid, and he's got this Shapeshifter that's still attacking and is still untapped, but now it becomes Hermit Druid. And so he mills his whole deck and puts Psychotog on top, and then exiles 20 cards to have, or 40 cards, whatever, to make it a 20/20 attacking Psychotog to kill me. That was the line he wanted to take. And so what he said was, look, I got a Hermit. You're dead. And I was like, okay, show me. And he's like, well, so now I can just flip my whole deck and put Psychotog on top and exile a bunch of cards, and then you'll be dead. And it's like, okay, please do it. So I had, I could cast a spell, and there was a standstill on the battlefield. And so I thought, I'm going to wait for this guy to mill his deck, and then I'm going to crack my own standstill and make him draw 3 and win the game. But I had to do this with a poker face because I thought, like, maybe there's crazy lines he can do. I hadn't worked out exactly what those lines were. Shane, you and I talked later about Battlefield Scrounger as a potential card he could have used to maybe not be dead to standstill. I didn't know exactly what he was capable of, but I was worried that there would be lines that could win, even though I was going to crack the standstill and make him draw 3. And so I was trying to pretend, play along with the narrative that I was dead, but also I was trying to get him to commit to saying what he was doing, because he wasn't actually declaring that he was making plays and moving his cards around. He was more saying, now I can do this, and therefore you will be dead. So can you please just concede already? And I was, trying to make him actually commit to a line. And he did. And I Swords to Plowshares, which cracked the standstill, and he decked himself. So then, as we discussed later, he probably could have taken a different line to not be dead to that standstill. Shane, do you want to take over and describe that?
Sure. It feels weird to describe a matchup from the spectator seat, but I kind of watched this from the streaming booth, and when I assisted Andy in getting to his hotel, it was a 25-minute drive, so we kind of discussed this whole line where there was a possibility where if the opponent just didn't go all in, he could have just pumped the Tog for some amount and left Battlefield Scrounger as the top card, so even if Andy broke the standstill, he still had cards to draw 3 and have a deck. And then with Croson and Reclamation still being in, he still had multiple turns after that. So there was a few lines the opponent could have taken to possibly won that game, but it was just really, really intricate, because I was talking to Andy, because I was watching the stream from the presenter side, and I saw that he had a Swords and a Disenchant. So there was still some play from the Landstill side, but there was some lines the opponent could have taken that potentially could have won the game, and we literally debated them for 25 minutes on the way from Whitensville to Worcester, and it was a really engaging conversation where the opponent could have done this and Andy could have done that, and there was a myriad of possibilities on how that game could have resolved.
Yeah, that was a great post-tournament drive, and a great game. So that was game 1. In game 2, I believe, I think I just drew all lands. There were a few points in the mid game where he played some discard spells. He had a Xantid Swarm. He had a Survival going for a little bit. And I think if I had, drawn some more action, it would have been a closer, more interesting game. But I had a grip with 5 lands and 0 spells in my hand going into the mid game, and just didn't have much resistance for what he was doing. So he killed me that one. And then in the third game, we traded blows a little bit. He had some discard spells. I had a Factor Fiction to refill, and then I managed to drop a Humility, which shuts down his deck pretty hard. And from the moment that Humility hit the battlefield, I kind of knew I had it. I just beat down with Factories for a few turns, and that was it. So, yeah, that was my tournament.
You won.
Matches.
Yeah, it was an amazing run.
Thank you.
How'd that feel?
It was great. Yeah, it was a little surreal. I mean, I was, crazy sleep deprived at that point. And you know, and when you're there in the thick of the tournament, when there's like 120 people playing, it feels like really bracing and really exciting, and you're like there in this gigantic crowd, playing competitive Magic games. So, rounds 1 through 5 felt like really exciting and high energy. And somehow at the end, like it kind of turns into this vibe of like people have been here a long time. You're the last match that's happening. Everyone's kind of ready to go home. So it felt amazing to win. It felt amazing to get the super sweet altered prize cards. But there was also a little bit of a like, okay, we're all ready to leave at the end of a long day.
It gets a little sparse at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like as the TO, like during, like I think it was like during the quarterfinals, I was like jamming games of Classic Legacy with SWB. And I got to play like a bit of AAA. Like it's much quieter. It's really fun because everybody's like tired. The people who are like hanging around, they're not like waiting for the next match. So everybody's like chill and just like they're there because they're content to hang and they want to socialize. So I have like a fondness for these like tranquil, quiet hours at the end of the tournament.
Yeah, I hear you. That they are really nice in a way. I have this cool collection of cards called Seed Cube that I bring around
Yes,
from time to
yeah,
time.
that's on my notes to ask you about. Okay, so you won our event. What's going on with the C Cube?
Oh
Wait,
yeah,
what'd you
Seed
win?
Cube is
What'd you win? You got
I got a Sarah's Sanctum, and I
very
got a
good.
couple of prize cards, a
Cool.
Impulse, and a like World Championship deck blank card that have some cool paint on them saying 2026 Summer DuressCrew Regional Champion.
Hell yeah.
Very cool.
Hell
I
yeah.
have
Cool.
top loaders and a little magic trophy wall next to my bed. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So Seed Cube.
Yeah. Seed Cube is
This was a Nick Mayo told me to don't forget, ask Andy about the Seed Cube. So what's up with that? What is that?
Yeah, it's a funky Magic format that I invented, that I like to bring around to tournaments. It's fun to jam games in between rounds or after the round. So my friends were joking. I always carry this box with Seed Cube around to tournaments, but then I never get to play it because I always in the top 8 instead. So one of my fondest aspiration is to miss top 8 so I can play Seed Cube during those twilight hours. But no, so I first came up with it like back in grad school, where I had all these like boxes of old cards and had play sets of like funky rares that looked like some kind of weird, interesting build around, but that was never quite good enough to really be the centerpiece of a real deck. But I'd always kind of thought like, I wonder if there's some weird, interesting deck you can build that has this strange rare in it. And so I made a little kind of project where I would like randomly assign my friends a couple of these cards, or one of these cards, or so I ended up liking, you get randomly assigned 2 such cards, and then you have to build a deck that has 4 copies of each of these 2 weird old random rares.
So I sit down to play in your curious strange cube, and there's a seed pile, right? And there's 2 cards in the seed pile, right? And then so I get 2 of them, and I get ×4 of each of these 2 cards. And then we sit down to draft a curated cube that's been designed with these seeds in mind.
Yeah, so the streamlined way the streamlined format that it currently is, that it's evolved into, is you get a 50 card pool. There's actually no draft portion. It's more like a sealed deck.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So you get a 50 card pool. You pull 2 of the cards at random. They have to be non-land. So if you get a land, you put it back and draw again. So you'll get 2 randomly assigned cards, and those are your 2 seeds. You have to play with 4 copies of each of those seeds in your deck. And you're building a 40 card deck. The other 32 cards in your deck can be made up of any of the other cards you got in your pool, plus as many basic lands as you want, plus 3 copies of the card Prismatic Vista. That's a little rule I added so that everybody's mana is pretty good. And all the other cards in your pool that are eligible for inclusion of your deck that are not your seeds, you can play up to 2 copies of each of them. So you must play 4 ofs of each of the seeds. You may play up to 2 of everything else.
So you have 4 cubes that are identical.
I
Is that
have
correct?
4 copies of each of the cards in Seed Cube. Yeah, the structure
Got
of it is there's the seed box, which has
Yeah.
200 distinct cards. Seed Cube consists of 200 distinct cards. And then there are all the store boxes that have the other 3 copies of the playset of all those cards. Yeah.
So and you just have a huge stack of Prismatic Vista.
And there are 24 prismatic vistas in there. Yep.
It sounds great. Nick Mayo told me that he got to play this once, and he opened. It was Mesa Enchantress in braids, and he was like, "Boy, howdy!" So I'm gonna play an enchantment with my Mesa Enchantress, and hope that I don't draw another enchantment. It's just like, oh well, that was shit. So
Nick Mayo, if you're listening to this, I watched you struggle to build that deck, and I felt so bad for you that I cut Mesa Enchantress from Seed Cube after that. So
yeah,
that's because of you.
He cried too hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're all used to it. We're all used to it in the game.
That's one of my main playtesting tools is like listening to how loudly people complain when they got a certain card as the seed, and then there might be time to cut that card from Seed Cube if they're that unhappy when they get it.
Maybe there could be like a one redraw, if that makes sense, where you keep one and then it means that you can have more variety. Like you can support Enchantress and braids. Like those are cool build arounds. But it's like, all right, man, like I'm gonna let you flip once more, but now you're really stuck with it.
Yeah.
The unsynergy between Mesa Enchantress and braids is legendary.
Yeah, startling.
Yeah. I mean, I really like forcing people to make lemons out of lemonade.
God.
You know, I like it when they get some weird, janky stuff. I don't want you to have Dark Ritual and Tendrils of Agony as your 2 seeds. Like, okay, that's kind of, fun once in a while to tell a story about, but like the heart and soul of Seed Cube are those times when you get Mesa Enchantress and braids or whatever, and you like you figure out some crazy 5-card combo engine that actually works with those things.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we are ready to actually, I'm gonna ask, what is your favorite, like what is one of those stories where you just hit super hard, you're like, damn, like what's your best case, and then what's your disaster case that turned out to be much better than you were expecting?
Oh, with Seed Cube?
Yeah.
I mean, I've built so many Seed Cube decks, like they all kind of blur together. I think the cool stories for Seed Cube are for other people. For me, I've just played so many thousands of Seed Cube rounds that it's kind of one of my like low energy comfort activities at the end of a long day. Like while I'm watching a movie or something, I might just like build some Seed Cube decks. So I don't think of it in terms of like individual memorable combinations of cards anymore. I've just drawn so many pairs of seeds and tried to build deck around them.
So you've reached a certain Zen state
That's
about
right.
it, where it's like, you know what, the Seed Cube giveth and the Seed Cube taketh away, and such as, it's a seed. It's sometimes the sprouts die, sometimes they turn into mighty oaks. That's what seeds are.
I'm just the floating space Buddha of Seed Cube. That's right.
Exactly. There you go. So you showed up, you came to our house, you took our Cirrus Sanctum, you developed some new Landstill theory along the way, you won your rematch. Hell yeah, man. Congratulations. Like what a story. What a treat.
Thank you. Hell yeah. It was a great weekend. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for putting on an amazing tournament. But I'm glad we've got a good little rivalry going between the New York and the Boston crew. So I hope some of you guys come down and, put up a good fight at Sacred Torch Showdown next weekend.
The comfort that I give myself is that like the fact that Duress Crew is able to go and just get people into your top 8s, I'm very proud of, because New York City is actually 50 times the size of Worcester. So it's like that we have, that like we show up and then we like give you bloody noses, but before we lose, like that's sort of how I take comfort, that it's like we are treated with respect, at like y'all have to try before you beat us, like we make you break sweats. But some of your top tier players, such as yourself, are just like, and some of you are just on like a different level. Like Andy Levine's so good. Like Dave Kaplan's so good. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Let's move to shout outs. What do you got, Shane or Andy, for shout outs? I got some events to shout out, but what do you guys got?
I feel like I've been doing
Andy
all the
first?
talking. Shane, you want to go first?
Sure. Shout outs. I'd like to shout out Great Stories for allowing us to host this amazing event. They're a great business partner, and we love our relationship with them and want to keep doing that going forward. I also want to shout out the members of the Duress crew that you don't often see. I'm sure everyone here knows Billy. Everyone here knows Nick. You don't know that, like, we had Dan doing the feature match spotting. We had Penny running the stream before I got on the stream. Jay, our stream director. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that don't necessarily get enough recognition, so I definitely wanted to shout them out as well. And then I guess I want to shout out Martin Berlin for just making the best format of Magic. Like, although I disagree with the Tide ban, this is clearly the best way to play Magic, and it's not close.
Hell yeah. Andy, what do you got?
Hell yeah. Shout out to my beautiful wife Gala and my adorable 4-year-old son Paul. Whenever I pull out the magic card boxes, he pretends they're train cars. He calls them bullet trains and starts driving them all around the floor. And I tell him, okay, this is fine. Just don't let the passengers get out of the trains, and we're all good. I wanted to pull all my survival of the fittest and whatnot out of the deck boxes. But yeah, no, it's really fun. Playing on coverage and knowing that they're watching somewhere. Shout out to all the Order of the Sacred Torch crew, especially the ones that we carpooled up with. Shout out to the Sacred Torchers who were cube drafting late into the night, right before the Summer Regional. I think Andy Levine was there. Landy Ho was there. Lanny Huang was there. Sylvan. But good bunch of guys. Yeah, shout out to Duress crew for putting on an amazing tournament, and for LobsterCon as well. You guys are killing it. I think you're making some extremely professional grade, definitely the best Magic format, and definitely the best coverage team and production values. Like, seriously, compared to the official WotC stuff, I feel like you guys are putting them to shame. So thank you for all the work you've done for our community.
Yeah. Hear that, Jay? Cool. I have some shout outs. It's mostly event stuff. So here we go. So you may have seen what is probably the best and highest integrity event flyer of all time. Shared Discovery has the 2026 Pre-Modern Peach Ball. It's going to be held on August 22nd in Marietta. It's $30. Gold border. They got their head screwed on straight. All proceeds to ALS. Perfect. Love it. Love to hear it. So go, if you are in the Atlanta metro area, please consider going to this event on August 22nd. Next up, if you're not in the Atlanta metro, you might be in the Columbus metro, and you can go to the Pre-Modern Buckeye Brawl too. They're great. Gold border, full color proxy legal. You got stamp promo. Hell yeah. It's a 128 cap. Hell yeah. Benefiting Mid-Ohio Food Collective. Hell yeah. This is great stuff. So the Pre-Modern Buckeye Brawl 2 is on September 12th. It's $50. So check that out if you're over there. And what else do I all got? Oh, I got one more. If you are not in the Atlanta or Columbus metro area, lucky you, because you're probably in Michigan, where you can go to Berkeley, Michigan, on August 15th and go to Peace. This one I'm really excited about. So this one is this is something of an up-and-coming crew, the Motor City Metalworkers. They're sort of Detroit metropolitan area. This is like their first independently organized tournament that they've done. So they got their own like functioning store that they do tournaments at, but this is their first time like running their own show. So I'm very proud of them for getting this together. They got raffles, they got giveaways, they got goal border legal. What are they giving out? A goblin deck, just a straight up goblin deck. First place, second place gets a Sarah Sanctum. Yeah, it's sick. So Berkeley, Michigan on August 15th. Check out the Peace. It's called the Peace Pre-Modern Exalted Angel Charity Event. Hell yeah. Neon Mushroom, he's helping run that. He's a good dude. I like his content. He's a pleasant fellow in real life too. So make sure to check that out. Duress Crew is here for the up and comers, and I hope they show us up one day, but no time soon. Cool. So that is my shout outs, and I think it's time to end the podcast, boys. I think that's the end of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Shane. That was amazing.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Andy Voellmer. You are just a real treat in the community and a great podcast guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to appear on Hardcast. And Shane, good night to you, sir.
Good night, Andy. Pleasure as always. Thanks for having us, and we appreciate seeing you, and we hope to see you at the next event.
All right, that's it. Bye.